Curveball. Tornadoes and severe thunderstorm warnings had forced the promoters to shorten our race from 100 miles to 50 miles. Adding on top of that chaos, none of us had pre-ridden the 50-mile course because it was pretty much an entirely different course from the 100-mile. Things about to get crazy.
Arkansas, you guys ready for this? Check. 3, 2, 1, and they're off. It's the 2025
Welcome back to the Drew Dillman YouTube channel. We are in Bentonville, Arkansas for the Big Sugar Classic. This is the grand finale for the Lifetime GP, meaning all of the Lifetime GP athletes are required to come to this race, which means it's a hitter. Just before the start, as soon as we had heard about the course change from the 100 to the 50, my teammate Chase was showing me on his phone the 50-mile course because I had not done any recon alongside most of the other pros. So we were looking at all the potential parts of the course that could be where separation would happen. Somehow in this brief course recon, I missed that there was a very sketchy descent about 4 miles into the race, and I was caught off guard by how fast we went straight off the line to get to that first sketchy downhill, and was thinking, man, I wish I had warmed up. It was so chaotic that I even forgot to press the record button on my GoPro, so I've clipped a couple little shots from Joe Gettle's page to show you how crazy that first descent was. Historically, I've not done half bad at this race. 24th 2 years ago and 19th last year. Not bad for a stacked Lifetime GP race. Coach Dizzle says that this is because most athletes don't give themselves a proper mid-season break and rather they race and train too much over the summer. This usually means that they're burnt out, not motivated, and just ready for the season to be over by the time they get to their last event, which could quite possibly be the most event of the season. Dizzle Kibitz number 28, you're not Superman. Once we did get past that first sketchy downhill, I was a bit surprised at how chill the pace was. We were moving along at a pretty good speed, but you can tell that the pace wasn't really high because of how bunched up the group is. And this makes for some pretty stressful racing. With my teammate Chase Wark not racing, I kind of felt obligated to keep the whole attack early, attack often spirit alive. So as soon as I get an open chance, I send it. I'm by myself for a little bit, but then I'm joined by Brandon Johnson, Kobe Freeburn, and Michael Garrison. 3 really strong riders. And I quickly have to come to the reality that I'm the weakest one here, which means I'm already skipping pulls just so that I can maintain their pace because I'm already on the limit. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe I shouldn't be burning all these matches so early in the race, but we were already 12 miles into the race, and in a 50-mile race, that's 25% of the race already finished. Dizzle Kibitz number 15, conserve energy, does not apply in a 50-mile race. All right, Garrison, now you're just showing off, buddy. Eventually, I just can't hang, and I have to let the gap open, and on top of that, the peloton or the main group is right behind us, pretty darn close, and so there's no point in staying on a sinking ship when it looks like this break is not going to be successful. This attack lasted about 13 minutes with a normalized power of 358, which is just shy of my FTP. My heart rate has already rocketed up into the 190s multiple times. You can see just how chunky and bumpy and rough some of these narrow roads in Arkansas can be. This makes, along with the really sharp rocks, the risk of flat tires to go up dramatically. That is one of the highlights of the Big Sugar race, is flat tires. I've opted to run the Continental Dubnatal 2.2s on my Lauf Segula. And if you want to get some mountain bike tires for your gravel bike, or anything else for your gravel riding addiction, you can roll over to BIKETIRESDIRECT.com and use code RADDADDIZZLE to save 10% at checkout and to help support me in racing. And if you're wondering why mountain bike tires, there's two good reasons. First of all, they have more tread usually. And second of all, they have more volume, which means you can run a lower pressure, which also minimizes your risk of flat tires. But at Big Sugar, even running mountain bike tires does not guarantee you from flatting out. The front guys obviously knew that there was a pretty difficult climb at this point in the race, and they nuke it. And I find myself caught off guard on the wrong side of a field split, along with Adam Burge and a few other people. Now, Adam does end up blasting me for not pulling through when he flicks me with his elbow. Now, I think I had a pretty good excuse. I had just burned a pretty darn big match with that 13-minute effort off the front. And that is why I'm kind of suffering and I've not made that front group. What was your excuse, Adam? But we end up catching back up anyways, so not really a big deal. All right, there is a very interesting and crucial race dynamic that you need to know going into this race. The top four guys in the Lifetime GP are all fighting for the top four positions, and basically how they finish Big Sugar's race, the results, is how they're gonna finish in the overall. So those four riders are staring at each other all day. This leaves the door wide open for nobodies like me to get a big result, potentially. For example, if I attack and none of those four riders go with me, that is a very easy way for me to get a gap, because now the four strongest guys in the race aren't going to be chasing me down. That's an opportunity. If one of those riders decides to come with me or decides to start chasing, you can guarantee the other three are going to follow. And that will not work. This, again, allows for big opportunity, and the chess game is on. We roll into the aid station, and I've opted to just race with the two bottles that I started with, which are two big bottles filled up with GOODLIFE carbs mix. Each bottle has 150 grams of carbs and about 100 milligrams of caffeine. If you want to get some GOODLIFE nutrition, roll over to fuelyourgoodlife.com and use code RADDADDIZZLE to save 20% at checkout. We make it through the aid station safely, and I do have to chase back on after a few splits have happened. But now we're only 15 miles from the finish, and I see a chance to attack, and I do a soft attack. This is not like I'm not out of the saddle sprinting and blitzing to get a big gap really quickly. I kind of slow roll off the front to see if anybody will come, and nobody does. They just let me go, and I end up by myself with only 15 miles left in the race, and I am licking my chops. Being by myself is not optimal, and so then when I look back and see Skylar Taylor making the bridge across, I'm pretty happy, and I actually end up slowing up to be able to let him catch up to me, because the two of us are a lot more likely to make it to the finish together, holding off all the favorites behind us than just one of us alone. And I'm starting to think we could go the distance. However, on the next big climb, some of the strong guys behind us surged quite hard, and the gap went from pretty promising to basically gone. This attack was pretty short-lived, only 8 minutes at again about 360 normalized, and my heart rate did pop up into the 190s again. Little did I know that there were 3 riders actually already off the front of the race: Matt Beers, Matt Wilson, and Riley Amos. I thought Matt Beers had already flatted out. I had no idea that Riley Amos was in the race, so I am totally caught off guard that went after the race when I finished to hear that those 3 were actually up the road. Kind of embarrassing. But the cool thing is that when I was off the front with Skylar, I thought we were gonna win. Like, I thought me and him are going 1-2 in this race. And it is not often that I am in that position where I think, even for a glimmer of a second, I could win this. Having that feeling, even just if it was a few minutes, was pretty sweet. And I hope I get that feeling a few more times coming up in the next season. For some reason, Kobe Freeburn is not even looking where he's going, and he takes his hands off his bars right as the entire group is turning, which causes a big crash, and Sean Finchamp, Canadian natty champ on the mountain bike, hits the ground and his race is over. Kinda not cool. Griffin Easter attacks, and he is in the Lifetime GP, but he's so far down in the overall that those top 4 guys aren't afraid to let him get a gap. And I lean over to my buddy Julian Gagne, who's also not in the GP, and say, hey man, you should follow that. And he listens to me, and they end up going 2nd place and 4th place. And I am, in hindsight, thinking to myself, why in the world did I tell him to follow that and not me to follow that? What a doofus. Giving out free advice? What are you doing, Dizzle? That could have been a podium finish for you. Well, you live and you learn. Good for them, though. Now my game plan is to stay at the front, make all the splits, and be there for the sprint, which is coming up quickly. Dizzle Kibitz number 25, the front equals safety. As we roll into town with only 6 or 7 miles left in the race, it starts absolutely dumping rain on us. Just a few miles after this, I'm in the front group of maybe 15 or less riders, but another big group of like 10 or 15 riders catches back up to us, which makes it kind of chaotic, and it's looking like it's gonna be like a 25-30 person sprint to see who gets the last spot on the podium. And the person who was probably the luckiest from that chase group that caught back up was Caleb Schwartz, because he goes on to get 6th place overall, getting 2nd in this giant field sprint, and he wasn't even in the group 5 miles from the finish. That's kind of rad. We turned left on a slaughter pin, which is a really hard paved climb about 2.5 miles from the finish, and I figured we're gonna nuke it up this thing. And I was right. It was darn hard. So I moved myself to the front and end up cresting over the top of this climb, making the final selection of 7 riders out of this main group. And here's the race scenario. We've got 4 guys up the road, 1 guy in the middle that's kind of chasing, and then the 7 of us. And I almost have a guaranteed top 10 at this point. The effort up this climb was about 2 minutes at 508 watts, and I'm about to stroke out at a 196 heart rate. Because all those top guys are really just looking at each other, the pace slows down quite drastically as we descend into the last climb, and I'm kind of bummed because that gives everybody that we had just dropped on the hard climb an opportunity to catch back up. And what was only a group of 7 is again a big group of 20 to 25 riders, and I am left thinking, why didn't I capitalize on that and send an attack when it looked like it could have potentially worked and I could have pulled off a top 10. Dizzle Kibit's number 29, and I can't believe I haven't even used this one yet. You gotta be willing to lose the race to win the race. But that's what I do, like an idiot. And also like an idiot, I didn't even get the final sprint on my GoPro. I'm really mad about this, but with all of the rain that was coming down, it interfered with how I could hear the beeps when I pressed the button on my GoPro. It's no excuse, I know, but that's the one I'm using. So I didn't actually even get the sprint on camera. But here's the rundown. We soft pedaled up that final climb, and then it starts to pick up the pace. Caleb Schwartz makes a pretty dodgy pass as we're turning left. He just kind of cuts through somebody's front yard, and he ends up right next to me. I'm on Keegan's wheel. Keegan starts opening up the sprint first, and I'm thinking, dang, I'm in a pretty good spot. And for a long time, I was like 2nd or 3rd in the sprint behind Keegan, and then Cam Jones just comes freaking rocket shipping up past us, and he's gone. He blitzed us. And then eventually, like 10 seconds from the line, basically, I just get swarmed by like 7 or 8 riders because I can't manage the same pace that Keegan and those others guys were all the way to the finish. So I kind of gassed out right before we get to the finish, and I end up coming across the line in 14th. Again, an improvement, yes. Am I happy about it? Yes. But I am kind of bummed that I missed out on some big opportunities throughout the race. Altogether, the race time was about 2:16, 178 TSS, 321 normalized power, which is about a 0.89 intensity factor, and an average heart rate of 179. These are definitely some of the biggest numbers that I've seen all season. But this is also the shortest race I've done all season, so kind of checks out. One more thing that's really cool that I'd like to mention to end this video on a really high note is how genuinely stoked some of my competitors were that I had a good race. Like guys like Cole Patton came up to me and said, good job. Andrew LeSprance at the gravel rave was like so proud of me that I was in the mix and racing at the front of the race. Braden Lang, Kobe Freeburn, like all these guys were pumped that I was in the race and being an active part of the action. And I just was like blown away about how cool they were about the whole thing. And I'm gonna finish with this one, Dizzle Kibit's number 30, be a blessing. That's all I've got for this one. Subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, like it. I'll see you in the next one.